Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Carruthers. I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica, and this is our weekly podcast, Off Track. I do the show every week with my cohort, Sean Bice. Sean's actually in Ohio. I'm in Southern California, but we still manage to make this thing work. Fortunately, I get up earlier than he does, but so it all works out. Sean, how are you today? Hey, real quick, I'm kind of excited about our guest today.
Yeah.
Most of the time we have guests on here, I know a lot about them. I have some kind of relationship with them. And this one's kind of cool because I actually don't. So it's, you know how you interview somebody that you don't really know anything about, you tend to ask different questions or whatever, and you find out more stuff than sometimes you find out about the guy that you think you know, but don't necessarily know all the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% true, because people who are friends of yours, sometimes you go along with them and see them, and you never really ask them a lot about their background because you have so much other stuff to talk about. So I absolutely agree with you on that. And, it's funny. My wife's always giving me a hard time about the fact that, and you know this, Paul, I know it drives you crazy too, but I talk to everybody and ask everybody questions, as you know. So I don't, whether I know the person or not, almost doesn't even matter to me. We will get to know them pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're better about that than I am. That's probably why you know our guest a lot better than I do. I know him to say hi or whatever, but I knowing you probably know what grocery store he shops at.
Well, the funny thing is, now when we bring him on, neither of us remember this, but we don't remember where we were. But last year, I remember we were somewhere. It could have been RoadAmerica, but I can't remember. But I was at a eatery, standing in line, and I didn't really know what our guest looked like without a helmet on, and we got to talking, and he started, I go, "Oh, you're Jeffrey Purk." And we were like going back and forth a little bit, and neither of us really knew the other one was like involved. I might've had my MotoAmerica shirt on or something, but I don't remember what round it was or where it was, but I just thought it was really funny that, that happens a lot on race weekends. We all tend to go to the same places, it seems like, to eat at night. So
right. There's only so many Chili's in town.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you let the cat out of the bag, which is great. Our guest is Jeffrey Purk, and he's known to most people as the racing dentist because obviously being a dentist, I mean, that he's the only one I know of in the paddock, and he's the only motorcycle racer I know that's actually a dentist. So it'll be interesting to talk to him. But Jeff, welcome to the show. And I know you're driving. You had a busy day yesterday, or I hope busy. I know the weather was poor, but you were at Buttonwillow yesterday doing some superbike testing with the attack team. And now it sounds like you're headed to Chuckwalla.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Yeah, we were up at Buttonwillow with Richard Stamboli and the attack team. Jake Gagne, Josh Sharon, and Cam Bouvier was there as well. So that and a lot of high winds. So we got a little bit of testing, but pulled the plug out of there early and decided to head over to Chuckwalla.
Have you been to that track before?
This was my second time at Buttonwillow. So the first time was right before Christmas, and so new track, new bike, and then I've never been to Chuckwalla, so a lot of new stuff. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, tell us about. I'm excited to hear about the fact that you have some involvement with Attack and how that's going to be, and what your program's like this year. Tell us about that to start with.
Well, it started out, I was planning to take my 17R1 and turn it into a super bike, and I knew some parts and pieces I wanted to get a hold of. So I contacted Chuck Giacchetto with Westby Racing. He gave me a letter of introduction to Richard Stamboli. I sent him an email. He shot back an answer. It was like, well, you could try to piece this together, or you can just buy our 2019 super bike. And I said, give me 24 hours and I'll get back to you. Thought about it and went to my friendly credit unions, like, how much equity can I borrow? And never thought this would happen, but yeah, I pulled the plug and like, let's go for it. Let's have no excuses and go straight to the top of the food chain. Now it's just all up to me. So.
I got a quick question based on that. When you go to a credit union and you're borrowing money to buy a race bike, did they know that, or do they just think you're buying a motorcycle, or are you just getting money?
No, because I've done it a couple different times. I bought a Ducati Panigale back in 2013. It's like, look, I need an extra, the bike was $32,000. I need another $10,000 for race parts, and they said okay. So they're very friendly that way, I guess. So.
Hey, so Jeff, two questions here on the bike. First of all, do you know, like, whose bike is it? Was it Jake's bike or was it Cameron's bike? Do you know?
It was Garrett Gerloff's 2019 bike. The
19. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you said 19. I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 2019 because they had that. He sold Bobier's 2019 to a collector, and then had Gerloff's. They were using it in 2020 as a backup. So I guess they just had it sitting there and available, and turnkey operation. So, and the funny thing is, Gerloff, he was 31. Well, I was 31 back in the day. I was 31 in stock 1000 last year. I'm 31 this year in Superbike. So same bike, same number.
That's cool.
So perfect. So perfect. You're going to change the livery, obviously, on it, right?
Yeah, because Monster's not paying me any money to run their stuff. So yeah. I wish they were. I'd leave it just the way it is. Just, write me a 6-figure check and call it all good.
Okay, I've got another question based on the fact that I don't know your background, but it's interesting to me. And the first thing I thought of this morning was like, what came first for you? Were you a motorcycle rider, a motorcycle racer, and then you went and then you became a dentist, or were you a dentist and then decided you wanted to race motorcycles later in life? I'm not sure on your background, so that's interesting to me.
Honestly, it is a sort of the chicken and the egg. I was on a motorcycle at the age of 4. I wanted to be a Supercross superstar back in the day. Roger DeCoster was my idol when I was a little kid.
Wow.
But, had my street license, was never allowed to own my own bike. And then, smart kid. So, it's always going to college, went on to dental school. Once I got out of school, came home one day, I got a roommate. He's sitting there. This is 1993. I graduated high school in 84. He's got an 84 Honda VF1000F sitting in the garage. I'm like, you want to sell that thing? So that was my first street bike that I owned. 2 months later, Honda came out with the CBR 900RR. I saw that in the Cycle World centerfold. Looked like I'd opened up a Playboy for the first time. And I'd actually test rode it down at Deals Gap. I'd gone on a road trip, and the dealer there had one, and he let me ride it. Like, that was, the rest is history. I was hooked. I was just hooked on street riding. I didn't even know track days existed then, to be honest. I knew very little about racing. And much like the attack bike, I just sort of, one thing led to another. I ran into a guy who introduced me to a guy, and went and got my race license down at Hallett with Sam McDonald as the instructor in 94.
Wow.
Went down and watched the GNF at Atlanta when Yates won the 600, the 1100 Suzuki Cup, and James Randolph was down there, and started racing in 95. Thought I'd do it a couple years, and now here I am 26 years later, still doing it. So.
Yeah, that's the thing about you. You have a very long career in racing and CCS. And I mean, you were at Daytona, you've done some endurance racing and a lot of other stuff. So you've been around for a long time. Hey, one thing I want to ask you real quick, just to get something out of the way. I just got to tell you this. I absolutely love my dentist. Like, I like to go there. I have a good time. He's fantastic. When the hygienist gets done and he comes in, I'm always conflicted by something. His name is Dr. Bob Owens. Sometimes I call him Bob. Sometimes I call him Doctor. So I don't, and then I'm like, you're the same way. It's Jeffrey. Is it Jeffrey, Jeff, or do we call you Doctor? I mean, seriously, how do you like to be referred to?
Jeff's perfect. So honestly, I don't advertise other than I just call it Legacy Dental, just because I didn't know what else to call the team, since I'm basically my own sponsor. So, if I'm out and about, I don't really talk much about dentistry. I'd rather talk about motorcycles. So.
Well, listen, I'm sorry, Jeff, but I got to ask you some dentistry questions really, really quick. All right, right off the bat. The first thing you think of, and I see this happen. I watch a lot of football. I know Paul does too. I know a lot of the guys wear mouth guards, but most times the quarterback doesn't seem to. And I don't know. I don't think guys wear them in motorcycle racing. Do you wear a mouth guard? And do you think riders should wear a mouth guard?
I do not. I chew grape bubblicious. That's sort of my superstition.
That would be hard with a mouth guard.
Yeah. I've seen guys wear mouth guards. Dustin, who I was actually on the track with yesterday for track days, he puts a mouth guard in. So I suppose it's a good thing if, guys, tense up and want to, clench their teeth. It'd probably be good. Other than that, you're not out there boxing Mike Tyson. So I don't know why you need it.
I'm still struggling with something here, and that's the fact that Sean said he actually likes going to the dentist.
Yeah,
must be a cute hygienist. That's all I can say.
Well, she's not bad, but luckily my teeth are in good shape. They haven't had to do too much, except I've got one wisdom tooth that I refuse to allow to be taken out, and they've actually had to put fillings in it because it's so far back. And he's like, I wish you had a flip top head so I could get back to that tooth a little better. But it's
come to Iowa and Des Moines, and I'd be happy to
extract.
Needle in your eye, knock you out, and get the tooth out for you. That's pretty much all I do. I just can't do it in California legally.
What? Oh, really?
No, you can only practice in certain states, I would imagine.
Oh,
yeah. I'm just licensed in Iowa, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Jeff, are you originally from Iowa? Is that where you grew up?
Yep. Born and raised, lived in Houston, Texas for 1 year. Other than that, yep. Iowa, my whole life. So.
What's the nearest track to where you live?
There used to be one 2 hours away, just south of Council Bluffs, Omaha there. But a few years ago when they had all that flooding, I think it kind of got washed away. Other than that, Heartland Park in Topeka is about 4 hours. Blackhawk Farms in Beloit, it's about a little under 5. Road A's about 6.5. Road America. We're going to Brainerd, so that's about 6 hours. So nothing close. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, we put one on the schedule. It's at least in the general neighborhood for you in Brainerd. Have you been to Brainerd before?
Back in the day, yeah, CCS, we used to race up there, and I've done, back when it was AMA Superbike, did rounds back there in like 97 through 2000 or whenever they were there last. So,
yeah.
But I haven't been on the new configuration. That's still the old one where you had the, almost mile long front straightaway for the drag strip going into turn 1, WFO, hopefully.
Yeah, turn 1, wow.
On a 600,
yeah.
Yeah. So all I remember is really big mosquitoes up there. So
yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
And some
more like birds.
So
I'm okay. So I got one more semi-dentistry related question, and then we can move on to other things. There's all aspects. You're a multifaceted guy, Jeff. So we want to find out some stuff. So I know, I guess it was 2 years ago. Chris Parrish had crashed. Gosh, I think it was at Utah. And he was okay, but he actually kind of cut his elbow a little bit. So he went over to see, I think, Dr. Carl Price, who is a plastic surgeon who races in our series in Twins Cup, sewed him up. And has anybody ever come to you with for any quick consultation on their teeth or whatever?
Yeah, I'll get asked questions here and there. The only actual work I've ever done was on Cindy Singer at Gateway in St. Louis. She had a porcelain crown on I think her canine, and she chipped it a little bit and it's just really sharp. So I got out a drum, a little buffing wheel, and buffed it down for her. That's all I've ever done. I've offered
in
up,
the paddock.
Oh yeah, in the paddock. Yeah. Just enough to take the edge off. So.
Yeah, some people drink a bottle of whiskey, but if a Dremel works to take the edge off, I'll do it too, I guess. I have one of those out in the garage, but a Dremel, which I love, but I've never applied it on my teeth. And okay, this I got to bring up. And have you ever seen the movie Castaway?
Oh, yeah.
The one with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Where he's got the abs.
The ice skate, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's impossible. There's no way.
If it's abscessed enough, it would actually be kind of loose and it might actually work. And, trust me, I've never experienced a toothache, but I've heard, thousands of, stories from patients, and yeah, you'll get desperate enough to do whatever it takes to get that sucker out of there. So it's conceivable.
I just thought, and just for people that may not remember the scene, it's a bunch of packages from the plane that crashed when he went down. Some of them washed up on the shore, and one of the packages had ice skates in it, which was kind of an irony that he was on this deserted island and had these ice skates. And he ended up taking one of the skate blades because he had a bad toothache, and I think it was a rock, and he stuck the blade in his mouth and hit the end of the blade with the rock, and then he obviously passed out because they changed the scenes and went to forward in the future. But I thought it was going to come back with him with a gaping, scar on the side of his cheek or something. But he survived it okay. Well, that's movies, I guess. So
throwing some Monty Python, it's just a flesh wound. So.
Yeah, that's what it is. Right.
Okay, Jeff, I got another one. What's it like? I don't want to say you're more of an average guy like the rest of us, but I think you probably are closer to being an average guy like the rest of us than, for example, a Cameron Bobier or a Josh Herron, one of those other freaks, right? But
yeah, for sure.
What's it like being on the track with them? Like, is it intimidating? Do you not think about them? Do you just worry about yourself? If I went out there, I'd be a nervous wreck that I was going to get in somebody's way, or I was just, but tell us about that. I mean, what goes through your mind when you're out there with those guys?
Don't crash.
Yeah, that's number one.
Well, it's a decent sized track. There's only, 3 of us out there. So, they're, quite a few seconds faster a lap, but, we're spaced out. So it's not frequent that they're going around me. But yeah, I certainly don't want to do anything that's going to cause them to fall down, certainly. But yeah, I've hit a couple false neutrals going into 2, which is a really slow corner, and stood the bike up, and I didn't realize they were behind me, and I stood them up. And, after it's all done, I go back and say, hey, I'm sorry I hit a false. They're like, don't worry about it. It happens. No big deal. I mean, they're actually really nice. Very down to earth. I walk over there and I'm talking to Jake. It's like, hey, tell me what, can you really, with these electronics, can you actually go into the corner and just, mat the throttle and everything else does it for you? It's like, oh, heck no, you can't do that. You still got to ride sensibly. So, yeah, they're still guys. They're really nice. They're just really talented. So, but easy to talk to. Jake Tempe was there. So.
Oh, yeah, Jake's awesome. He's going to still continue. He did so much work with Cameron. I want to jump on what Paul said, because you're talking about when you're out there on the track during a test with these guys. But I think one of the things we want to know is when you're in the middle, when you're racing in our series, and there's a lot of people on the track, and
right.
At some point you're eventually going to come into somebody coming by you. So what they always say, maintain your line. But, unfortunately, half the time, the fans that see it on TV or something, they're like, yelling, get out of the way, get out of the way. And you have your own race to run. And you guys always get ripped for stuff. So from your perspective, talk about that, what you're trying to do. Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Hopefully they, have the blue flags out to alert us that, the leaders are coming up on us. And, I kind of do the math in my head based on the time differential, try to figure out, okay, about what lap can I expect these guys to come around me, so I can kind of start to be prepared for that.
Wow.
But, depending on the track and where you hit the blue flag, there's, yes, you want to maintain your line, but like say Road Atlanta coming out of 5, going down through the S's, I think Elias was coming up behind me, and all I did was, I moved over like 2 feet off the curbing so he could go up the inside down the S's and not be held up by me. So, when you do stuff like that, the nice thing is a lot of those riders will kind of, wave their left hand and, a little thank you. Others, if they feel like they held you up, they kind of turn their head and give you the, dagger eyes, so to speak. So,
right. Right. And then sometimes, Jeff, you can't help it. Like when you're riding your own race, you're not necessarily looking behind you all the time. So you said you're timing it out to when those guys might come up. But are you thinking, well, I don't know if, a lot of times the way Cameron was last year, he'd come through and then there'd be quite a ways before another guy would come up. But are you thinking when that first guy goes by, oh, I got to be ready because there might be a whole pack of them coming through? How do you do that?
Yeah. There is that thought. It's like, all right, when's the next one? I know there's, someone else is going to be coming, and then another one. It's kind of hit and miss. And like I said, sometimes you see the blue flag, sometimes you don't. Like at Barber, I damn near ran Matthew Stoltz off the track down the front straight because I didn't know he's coming up on the outside of me there. So kind of looked over at each other down the front straight, like, what are you doing? So.
And yet Chuck Giacchetto, the team manager of that team, still got you hooked up with Stambola to get a bike. So, hey, it's all love in our paddock, right? It's all good.
It's racing. No one's out there doing anything malicious. It's at least we hope not. So, yeah, you just hold the line. The biggest thing is not to do anything unexpected. I've had Malad pass me. There's been like a foot between me and the edge of the track going through turn 2 to turn 3 at Brainerd, and he's on my outside. Like, how the hell did you fit through there? Good God. As long as you don't do something unexpected, you keep your line, they'll find the way around. That's their job, find the way around. And if I go to the track day, that's where I feel like I'm the Bobier on the track, because I got the same issues. Like, all right, which way are you going? I got to go this way or that way. So
it's just
it is, yeah. So I've been passed by Nicky Hayden back in the day, and Duhamel and Malad and Yates, all those guys. Yeah, I've had my doors blown off, so to speak. So I've raced against them. Ooh. I've been lapped by them all.
I've talked to Max Flinders and some other guys about this. Obviously you go to a race and you're not going to win. And I talked to Max, like how do you keep motivated, and what are you looking for? And he said, honestly, that he's just going by lap times and his improvement over the last season or the last time that he was at that track. Is that kind of what you do? I mean, do you look to lap times to go, man, I'm getting better at this, or, this bike's making me faster and this and that? I mean, is that how you evaluate yourself?
Yeah, this last year it was about making the cut for the Superbike Cup. So us stock 1,000 guys, if we went fast enough, we could get into the Superbike race. And so that was always the bar I was trying to get to. Because years gone by, I didn't have trouble qualifying in Superbike, and then got older or slower. Something happened. Everybody else got faster. I don't know. So dropped back to the stock 1,000 class because, that was the only other class available. And it's just, every time out this year, each session, I was faster every time. We were making changes. And so, seeing improvement, going faster, because obviously I'm not going to be, top 5 in a Superbike race. So I got to have some kind of a objective or, goal to reach. And it's, make changes, make improvements, just keep trying to move forward. And, I can't compare times of, 20 years ago because, the older I get, the faster I was. So, but, now this year I've got, I have the bike, technical support from Richard and his crew. If I have a problem or just the data, setting up the bike. But, the rest of it's up to me to get on the bike and try to develop, better skills and make use of, what the bike has to offer. So.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Jeff, is, this late, in your career and having raced for 20 years or so, you probably arguably have, or maybe inarguably have the best bike you will ever have coming into this year, a true full-on super bike that's been a race winner. Will it be your best bike ever?
It will be the most technologically and most expensive bike ever. Certainly most horsepower, best electronics. As far as, my best lap times, that remains to be seen. I certainly hope so. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason I went ahead and, pulled the plug and bought the thing. So no excuses.
Yeah. Are you gonna have a data guy?
Yeah, I have two guys that helped me out last year, Race Christensen and Brad Keeter. Brad's a computer. He loves the geeky side of things and looking at all the little squiggly lines. So I have to get him out here to the attack shop so he can sit down with Richard for a day and learn how to access and do everything. So still have to get that done.
So last year you probably had an OEM, probably an ECU that was flashed. Is that right?
It's actually I have the YEC kit ECU and harness, and then we've piggybacked on the AIM system. We got some potentiometers, so very basic data. You know, the TC is, you know, just the YEC stuff, so it's only so much you can do with that. So,
right.
Which, you know, I'm old school. I grew up with carburetors and no electronics. So.
Yeah. But on this bike, you have a Morelli system, right? On Garrett's old bike?
Yes, correct. Yeah, McNay, Morelli. Yeah. So.
Okay. So you're going full on with full superbike ECU and the deep end on that. And it's funny that you mentioned carburetors, because I always equate the fact that the black art of tuning carburetors versus the kind of black art of manipulating the data and understanding what the sensors are doing on an ECU system. It's in some ways, I mean, it's probably even more complicated than that, but you know, it used to be the ones that knew how to tune a carburetor back in the day. That was pretty important. And clearly now the guys that know how to manipulate the ECU and electronics on the bike are equally important. Wouldn't you say there's a little bit of a kind of a comparison there a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, there's always, you know, you got to tune the bike in some fashion, you know, like you said, back in the day it was, you know, getting the jetting correct, because there was no electronics to tune. You know, now, you know, fuel injection, you don't fiddle with that at the track. You just plug your laptop in and look at the squiggly lines and change torque control or some other stuff I don't understand. ETV and stuff Fuzzy's been thrown out to me. It's like, all right, you just, you know, plug in, do what you got to do. Just tell me to get on the bike and go faster. So.
Gosh, for me, I mean, it was all street bike riding with me, but I used to hate so much taking the carbs out and changing the jets or the needles or moving the clips in and out all the time. And it used to drive me crazy. At least with fuel injection, you can kind of do it it's a little cleaner at least, right?
Oh, much easier. Yeah. But,
yeah,
I used to have to, I built a 900 motor and jetted it. Took it out, you know, just on some back county roads, and had to evade some troopers one day while trying to get this thing jetted properly. So
that's what you have to do when you're in Iowa and you're 4 hours away from a track, I guess, right?
Hey, you know, you got to do what you got to do. You know, find a stretch of interstate that they're still, you know, building, or, you know, actually they years ago were building a bypass around part of Des Moines, and one of the guys that was working, I was a patient of mine, and say, hey, I got to do something on my bike. Can I come out and, you know, get on this stretch of road where, you know, it's not open to public traffic? And he let me do it. So yeah, I had a couple of times I could go out there and just let it rip and, you know, try to get it dialed in.
That's great.
Hey, this weekend at Chuck Wall is a race, right? Are you going out there to race, or are you just going to ride around, or what?
I guess yesterday and today there's a small private testing. I think 10 or 15 guys out there, Fuzzy. And then Friday is Apex Assassins track day. I'm signed up for that. And then was it CVMA? CVMA is having races Saturday and Sunday. So I signed up for the Friday and races Saturday, Sunday, and hoping to maybe get this afternoon on track as well. So
that'll be good.
So yeah, another 3.5 days.
Perfect.
Jeff, so we talked about the fact that you raced for a long time, but you stopped racing in 2011. Why did you stop, and what made you start up again, and when did you start? Was it the beginning of MotoAmerica, or did you come back a little bit before that?
The reason I stopped and made an official announcement of retirement was only so I could get term life insurance, because I'd started my business. And so I had a loan for my dad for the business, and my grandmother had sold some land, and she basically owned my mortgage. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, when I did go back to racing, if something happened, I could, you know, cover the debt to my family. So I had to retire to get the life insurance. And once that was in place, then I came back, you know, played the game. So.
Wow. That's pretty. So you had a dedicated plan on how you were going to make it. You were only quote retiring. You were planning to come back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I've said racing is more addicted than any other drug out there. So
what is it about it?
Quit.
What is it about it? If you can explain it.
There's a lot of things. You know, obviously it started with, you know, love of motorcycles and being on the track and, you know, being able to, you know, wrestle one of these bikes around the competition. But then as time went on, like say, you know, Blackhawk Farms, I'm there, you know, 5 times a year and I see the same people. A lot of these people, you know, I'm closer to them than I am, you know, a lot of my family. So, you know, it's a family, you know, that travels around kind of like the circus. You know, you show up, you see them, you know, 9 or 10 times a year in different towns. You know, you get to travel, get to hang out. You know, a couple of these families, we went on, you know, there's 2 other couples. We went on a cruise together years ago, go to Disneyland. We were down in Daytona, you know, go spend time with them over the holidays, you know, be in their kids, you know, go to their kids' weddings, you know, see the birth of babies. So it's an extended family. That's honestly been one of the greatest things about it. And then, you know, then we get to get on motorcycles, go on the racetrack and race. So, you know, that's just icing on the cake.
Man, I completely agree with you about that, Jeff. I mean, Paul and I talk about that too. Like last year when we showed up at the barber test, that first weekend or first time we're back in the paddock, it feels like, you know, the first day of school, you got all your friends back again, and it's just such a joyful feeling. And then that last race of the season, you know you're going to be back. It's a little bit poignant. You go around, you kind of say goodbye to people with the idea, you know, see you soon type of thing. But there is nothing like that feeling and that camaraderie that we all have. And, you know, to your point about, you said earlier about Chuck helping you. I mean, people help you. I've helped riders, I'm sure. So it's just a great feeling throughout the paddock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you.
Thing is,
go ahead. I'm sorry. No, well, go ahead. I was going to change the subject.
Well, not to be a Debbie Downer, but, you know, there's always, you know, crashes and, you know, the odd fatality, which, you know, fortunately in road racing, that's few and far between the fatalities, which I argue with the insurance companies because, you know, why won't you insure me on the track? But anyway, you know, I've had, unfortunately, friends who, you know, didn't survive or had bad accidents and ended up, you know, passing away later on. And, you know, that's always sad, but, you know, we help pick each other up and, you know, keep going. I've had, you know, crashes and bikes in the back of my pickup truck had to be driven home because I was all busted up. So, you know, there's the highs and the lows, but, you know, we always step up. So.
Well, Jeff, that's a great segue for this next question that I've got for you. I've been dying to ask you this one. So you, that's a bad choice of words. I'm sorry. I've been excited to ask you this question, but yeah, that was bad. So, I mean, you look at our president, Wayne Rainey, and, you know, he's got half a pinky. Roger Hayden doesn't have a pinky on one hand. I know, speaking of Garrett Gerloff, he had a bad crash a few years ago. Did everything he could to save his pinky and it's now fine. But, you know, Josh Hayes' hands are kind of gnarly. You are a dentist. Your hands are so important to what you do and you road race. So does that cross your mind at all? Anything about, my gosh, this, you know, my hands are my money here and I'm risking it every time I go out on the track.
Apparently I don't, because otherwise I probably wouldn't be out there. No, yeah, I guess I must be wired differently. I just assume the risk and go for it. You know, I've been injured and, you know, couldn't work for 2 or 3 months at a time, you know, a handful of times over the years, but, you know, still keep doing it. So, you know, by definition, that's an addiction. You know, you suffer consequences, but, you know, continue to do it. So I guess that's the only explanation I can give you.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, I'm not trying to discourage you. I think you know that. I just am being asking you a question. Yeah, understanding the thing. So I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I got to ask you a couple other things. One of the things that you've done in your career quite a bit is endurance racing. And, I mentioned Josh Hayes. I've talked to him a lot, and he talks about the benefit of doing that and how early in his career, even though he got a late start, one of the things that led to his success is all the endurance racing he did. What's your opinion on endurance racing? And would you like to see it in MotoAmerica? And I'm not asking you that because we're thinking about it. In fact, I might get yelled at because I'm even bringing it up. But personally, I used to love, watching endurance racing back in the day. If, not like necessarily maybe 8-hour ones or longer than that, but some that were, on a Saturday or something. And you'd see some of these other guys in classes would enter their bikes if it fit in that class in order to get a little bit more track time. So what do you think about endurance racing in general? And would you like to see it in MotoAmerica?
I personally love endurance racing because, usually we're not doing pit stops other than the Daytona 200. That's the only time, you see pit stops. It does give extra practice time, which is cool. And I think back in the day, AMA Superbike had some kind of endurance racing, if I remember right, back in the early 90s.
Yeah, they did.
Think.
Yes.
I know Arion Racing was big into that. So, and then Moto ST was around for about 3 years. So that was a good thing. It's, there's only so much racing you can pack into a weekend. And with the way they got it now, with all the different classes, I don't know if there's really enough time. I think it'd be cool to have it back. And, like I said, it gives the sport a whole different look because now you've got this whole crew and these pit stops and rider changes. And I just personally like it because you can just get in a rhythm and you're just going lap after lap, clicking off laps. And it's not so much about, a sprint race. It's about, consistency and can this bike hold together? And, there's so many things that can go wrong over the course of, even just a 2-hour race. So, it just brings a whole lot of other issues or, things that can happen during a race that you don't get in a relatively short, sprint race.
Well, you gave me another segue about endurance racing that I want to ask you. So and you're correct. AMA at one time had endurance racing. They had GTO and GTU, 2 different classes. And one of the things I loved is Moto Liberty out of Texas had a team that Danny Walker raced for. And they actually one year campaigned a TZR 250, the V-twin version of that bike, that had a TZ engine in it. And because it had a production-based frame, they were able to race that in the class. And they won an endurance championship on a TZ 250 engine TZR. And it led me to buy, I have a 92 TZR 250R, which is my pride, one of my prides and joy in my garage. And the thing is beautiful. I love it. It's still restricted to only 45 horse, like it came from the factory, but it's more than enough for me to go out on a Sunday and bomb around. So here's my question, Jeff. You have endurance raced the TZ 250 just like Danny Walker did. How the heck do you do that? I mean, do you have to rebuild the engine after you're done?
Well, the best part was, the other 4 guys all had their own TZ 250s. I never actually owned one, so they did all the tuning. I just got to jump on the bike and ride it. So I don't know what they did after the race, but it was a blast to ride. Oh, I loved it. Yeah. Awesome. Brakes, you don't need no brakes. Just throw it in the corner and go. It was great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no 2-strokes. I wish they'd make a comeback, and maybe they will. They're still trying to develop that technology a little more. So, well, I've dominated the last half of this podcast. I apologize, Paul. I just I can't help myself sometimes, as you know. But
it's fine. I went down the street and got breakfast, so I miss anything.
Probably Jeff wants to do the same thing at this point, but
actually, we just rolled into Chuck Wall. I see the Dunlop banner up. So
I was gonna say he's talked himself all the way to Chuckwalla.
Yeah. Well, Fuzzy was driving. I'm just sitting here in the passenger seat the whole time. So.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with us. It's nice to talk to you. It's nice to get to know you a little bit better. And we'll obviously be checking in with you throughout the season. And it's cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool. You've got a really nice motorcycle under you for this year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, riding it, racing it, and, working with it to try to make it as good as you can possibly make it. So thanks for joining us on the show, and, be safe and good luck this weekend, and keep running around in circles and getting better.
Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity. So yeah, look forward to speaking again with you guys. Give you an update on how things are going.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, I got to personally thank you for making the commitment, not only to MotoAmerica, but, with the new bike and everything you're doing. We know what you privateers do to get yourselves in the show, and it's, it makes the show. So, a huge shout out to you, and tip of the hat to you and your guys to do what you're doing and keep doing it. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And speaking of that, I want to just close by saying, we've made some more announcement this week in terms of what our TV packages are going to be for the year. And we want to make sure that the fans know to go on to our website, MotoAmerica.com, and go to the schedule, because we've got some tickets that are already for some of our races that are on sale already. And we're a lot of people are buying the Live Plus subscription service again this year, and it rolls over for people that have had it last year, and it automatically renews. So that's for a lot of people coming up for renewal, but it's been very popular, and we've got a season coming. Jeff's going to be part of it in the full-on superbike class with a badass fire-breathing Yamaha R1. So, definitely come and see him or watch on TV or on our live streaming, and look for the number 31. Right, Jeff? That's going to be your number?
That's right, 31.
Okay, look for it. Thanks, Jeff, so much.
Yeah, okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Be safe.
Will do. Take care.